Alien girl asked the human for a place to wait, but her reason for choosing him was the twist. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main character. Jason Miller was a simple man, a former soldier turned security contractor, working on Earth's outskirts. His life was nothing extraordinary, just a routine of long shifts and occasional downtime. But that day, as he walked out of his small apartment to grab some lunch, something unexpected happened. It was an ordinary afternoon, with the air still and the sun harsh, casting long shadows on the sidewalk. Jason had barely taken 2 steps outside when he noticed her, an alien girl standing near the alley, a soft glow illuminating her from the surrounding streetlights. Her skin was an iridescent shade of blue, almost shimmering under the light, her silver hair cascading like a waterfall. Her deep violet eyes caught his immediately, and he could sense a strange pull, a combination of curiosity and a kind of unreadable urgency. She looked lost, standing there, as if waiting for something or someone. As Jason walked closer, she turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting his. There was no fear, just a quiet determination. She spoke softly, her voice melodic and strange, yet comforting in a way. "Excuse me, I need a place to wait," she said, her gaze lingering on him, not with desperation, but with the calm certainty that only the most regal of beings could possess. Jason hesitated for a moment. It wasn't every day that someone like her approached him, asking for help. "Wait for who?" he asked, trying to mask his surprise. "For the time being," she said, the words coming out slow, measured, like she was thinking about them carefully. "I have my reasons, but it's a temporary need." Something about her calmness intrigued him, but it also made him uneasy. He had dealt with his share of strange situations in the past, but this was different. The way she carried herself, the quiet authority in her stance, felt otherworldly. "All right, come with me," Jason finally said, his voice steady. "I have a small place nearby." As they walked toward his apartment, he couldn't help but wonder why she had chosen him. There were thousands of people on this planet, yet she had singled him out. Was it fate, coincidence, or something more? When they reached his door, she stepped inside without hesitation, her movements graceful and calculated, like a dancer. Jason closed the door behind her and offered a seat. "You're safe here for now," he said, still wondering what the twist was. It wasn't until later that evening that he would learn the truth. The alien girl wasn't just some traveler seeking refuge. She was a royal from a distant world, a princess in hiding, and Jason had unknowingly become part of her intricate, carefully laid plans. But why him? What was the twist? He would soon find out that her reason for choosing him was something that would change both their lives forever. Jason sat across from the alien girl, watching her closely as she settled herself on the couch. The soft glow of the nearby streetlight filtered through the window, casting a pale light on her blue skin. Her eyes, deep violet and intense, never seemed to leave his face, as if studying him with the kind of precision only a being from another world could possess. She seemed so calm, so composed, and yet there was an undeniable tension in the air, something unspoken that hung between them. Jason cleared his throat, trying to break the silence. "So, what exactly are you waiting for?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with curiosity. The alien girl, who had introduced herself as Vera, tilted her head slightly, as if considering how to answer. "I am waiting for a place to hide, for a time when it is safe to reveal the truth," she said softly, her tone measured and almost distant. "And why me?" Jason asked before he could stop himself. He hadn't expected a straightforward answer, but something about her presence made him ask the question. Vera's gaze softened, and she studied him for a moment, as though trying to decide how much to reveal. "You are different," she said finally. "Most humans would never offer shelter to someone like me. Your kind is often afraid of what is different. But you showed kindness. That is rare, even among your kind." Jason furrowed his brow. "Kindness. I was just trying to be helpful." Vera nodded. "Exactly. That is why you are special." Jason shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to respond. "Look, I don't know what this is about, but if you need to hide out for a while, you're safe here. But sooner or later, you'll have to tell me the full story. Vera's eyes gleamed with an emotion Jason couldn't quite read. I will tell you in time. But not yet. I need to be sure you are the one I can trust. Jason leaned back, running a hand through his hair, still trying to process the situation. She wasn't like anything he had ever encountered before. Her composure, her presence, it was like she belonged to a different world altogether. And yet, there was a vulnerability to her. Vera, who had moments ago seemed so distant, now looked almost fragile, and it made Jason want to know more. A part of him was still skeptical, but another part of him, something deeper, more instinctive, was pulling him toward her, urging him to protect her. He had no idea why. But the more he looked at her, the more he felt like he had no other choice but to help. You'll have to tell me sooner or later, Jason said, trying to mask the growing curiosity and concern. I'm not the type to keep secrets, but I'm not going to press you. Just make sure you're ready when you're ready. Vera gave a faint smile, her eyes softening. Thank you, Jason. I will remember your kindness. Jason nodded, standing up. I'll grab us something to eat. You must be hungry. Vera hesitated before responding. Yes, but not for food. There is something more I need from you. Something that may seem strange, but it is necessary. Jason raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. What do you mean? Vera's expression grew serious. I need your help to escape the danger I am in. But to do that, you must trust me completely. The reason I chose you isn't random. You are the key to my survival. Jason's heart raced as he tried to process what she had just said. Was he ready for whatever this was? He had no idea, but one thing was clear. This encounter was going to change everything. Jason stared at Vera, his mind racing as the gravity of her words began to settle in. You're saying I'm the key to your survival? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper, trying to grasp the enormity of what she had just implied. Vera nodded, her violet eyes unwavering, filled with an intensity that Jason couldn't quite place. Yes, Jason, she replied calmly. There is a reason I chose you, a reason I need your help. But it is not something I can explain fully just yet. Jason shifted uncomfortably, running a hand through his hair. This is getting more confusing by the minute. What exactly is going on, Vera? Her expression softened, but there was still a distant quality to her gaze, like she was holding something back. I can't explain everything now, but I will tell you this. I am not just an ordinary alien. I come from a royal family, one that is being hunted. My people are at war, and I've been sent here to escape the dangers back home. Jason's brow furrowed. Hunted? By who? Vera hesitated before speaking, as though weighing the consequences of sharing more. By those who want to control my people. Those who want to use my power for their own gain. Jason couldn't help but feel a sense of pity for her, but the reality of the situation was slowly sinking in. So, you're asking for my help because they're after you? Vera nodded again, her gaze never leaving his. Yes, Jason, but it's not just about survival. There is something more. Something that could change everything. Jason stood up and paced around the room, trying to make sense of it all. He had always known there was more to the universe than just Earth. But this was something he wasn't prepared for. And how am I supposed to help? I'm just a guy who used to be in the military. I don't exactly have any royal connections, he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. Vera stood up and walked toward him, her movements graceful, almost otherworldly. You have something they don't, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. You have something that makes you unique. Your kindness, your willingness to protect. It is rare, even among your kind. And it is why I need you. Jason stared at her, confusion giving way to something deeper. A sense of responsibility, perhaps, or maybe curiosity. He had always been a protector, but never on this scale. I'm not sure I understand, he said. But if you're in danger, I'll help. I don't know how, but I'll help. Vera smiled, a faint glimmer of relief in her eyes. That is all I need to hear, Jason. I don't know where this journey will take us, but I promise you, we will face it together. Jason nodded, feeling a strange sense of resolve building within him. He didn't know what he had signed up for, but one thing was clear. He was about to embark on a journey that would change his life forever. And no matter how confusing it seemed, he couldn't walk away now. Not with her depending on him. Jason sat back on the couch, processing everything Vera had told him. His mind raced, trying to connect the dots, but he couldn't quite see the full picture yet. The only thing he knew for sure was that his life was no longer just ordinary. It had been turned upside down the moment he offered his apartment to a stranger. And not just any stranger, a royal alien, in hiding. "You really expect me to believe all of this?" he asked, his voice tinged with skepticism but also curiosity. Vera gave him a knowing look, her violet eyes flashing with something between resolve and exhaustion. "I do not expect you to believe it all, Jason. But I will show you the truth. All I ask is that you trust me, even if just for a little while longer." Jason nodded slowly, though doubts still clouded his thoughts. He hadn't signed up for anything like this, but here he was, caught in a situation he couldn't escape. As Vera settled back into the chair across from him, Jason couldn't help but notice how at ease she was in this strange, unfamiliar world. Despite the gravity of her situation, she exuded an aura of quiet dignity, as though she was used to dealing with far more dangerous things than an ordinary human could ever imagine. "So what now?" Jason asked, the words feeling strange as they left his mouth. He wasn't sure if he was asking about Vera's plan or his own role in it. "Now," she said, her voice calm and steady, "we wait. There are things I need to set in motion, but for now, we need to stay under the radar. I can't afford to attract attention. Not yet." Jason didn't respond immediately. His mind was already racing through possibilities, wondering if he had just gotten himself involved in something that would eventually be too big for him to handle. But when he looked at Vera, there was something in her eyes, a vulnerability that told him she wasn't just looking for shelter. She was seeking something more. Protection, yes, but also something Jason couldn't quite put into words. "Okay," he said finally, his voice steady. "We wait." Days passed, and the tension between them seemed to grow, but in a way that felt like an unspoken understanding. Jason kept to his routine, heading to work and coming home at the end of the day, but the presence of Vera in his apartment never felt intrusive. In fact, it felt strangely comforting. There was an unspoken bond forming, a sense that they were both on the same side, even if neither fully understood the nature of the situation. Jason did what he could to make her comfortable. He offered her a place to sleep, food, and companionship in silence. In return, Vera remained a quiet figure in the corner, always watching, always calculating. It wasn't until one evening, as Jason was preparing dinner, that she spoke again, her voice breaking the silence between them. "Jason," she said, her tone suddenly serious, "there's something I haven't told you. I'm not just a fugitive. I'm also a key figure in a war that has been brewing for years. My people, my family, are at the center of it. And the reason they want me is not just for political leverage. It's something much more personal." Jason turned toward her, the sound of his knife against the cutting board stilled. "What do you mean, personal?" he asked. Vera's gaze didn't leave him as she spoke. "My family's bloodline holds the key to controlling something powerful. And those who want to control it would stop at nothing to make sure they get it. They will use me, or anyone close to me, to achieve their goal. That's why I chose you, Jason. You're different, and because of that, you can help me survive. But you must understand, it's not just about saving me. It's about protecting something far greater than either of us." Jason swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He had no idea what he had gotten himself into, but he knew one thing for sure. Vera wasn't just another lost traveler. She was a piece of something far more complicated, and now, for better or worse, he was part of it. "I'll help," Jason said, his voice firm. "But I need to know everything. No more secrets." Vera nodded, the faintest hint of relief crossing her features. "I will tell you everything, in time. But first, we need to prepare. There's no more running. This is bigger than either of us. And I need you to be ready." Jason stared at her, uncertainty still lingering in the back of his mind. But for the first time since this all began, he knew he wasn't going anywhere. No matter what happened next, he had chosen to stay. And in that choice, he could already feel the shift, something that would change his life forever. Jason woke up the next morning with a weight on his chest. The room was quiet, the only sound the distant hum of the city outside. He had barely slept, his mind racing with the implications of everything Vera had told him. What kind of power could her family hold that would make them a target? And what exactly was his role in all of this? The questions kept him up, swirling around in his head like a storm he couldn't escape. He sat on the edge of the couch, rubbing his eyes, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. The apartment was still, but the air felt heavier than it had before. His thoughts were interrupted when Vera's voice broke the silence. "Jason, we need to talk." He looked up to see her standing in the doorway, her expression calm but serious. "Come in," Jason said, motioning for her to sit. She stepped into the room, her movements graceful and deliberate. It was still strange to him how composed she always seemed, despite everything that was happening. "I know you have questions," she began, sitting down across from him, "and I'm ready to answer them. But first, you need to understand that this isn't just about survival. This is about protecting the future of my people." Jason nodded slowly, still trying to process everything. "I'm listening." Vera took a deep breath. "My family, my bloodline, has been in power for generations. But there are forces, both inside and outside our empire, who want to take that power for themselves. The reason they're hunting me isn't just because I'm a royal. It's because I hold the key to something far more important." Jason leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "What do you mean, the key?" Vera's eyes met his, her gaze steady. "It's something we call the Heartstone. It's an ancient artifact, a relic of my people's earliest days. It holds the power to control the balance of our entire civilization. But it's not just an object, it's tied to our bloodline. Only those born into the royal family can access its true power. And that's why they want me." Jason sat back, trying to take it all in. "So, they want to control you to get to this Heartstone?" Vera nodded. "Exactly. But it's more complicated than that. If the Heartstone falls into the wrong hands, it could destroy everything we've worked for. The entire empire could crumble. I can't let that happen." Jason felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had no idea how he had gotten caught up in all of this, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't walk away. "What do you need me to do?" he asked, his voice steady. Vera looked at him, a flicker of something softer in her eyes. "I need your help to escape. To disappear, at least for a while. We need to get to the Heartstone before they do." Jason took a deep breath. "And where exactly is this Heartstone?" Vera hesitated before answering. "It's hidden, in a place only a few people know about. But if we can get there, I can unlock its power. And with it, we can finally end this war." Jason didn't speak immediately. His mind was still processing everything. A part of him wanted to turn away, to walk out the door and pretend none of this was happening. But another part of him, a deeper part, knew he couldn't leave her. "Not now." "All right," he said finally. "I'll help. But we need a plan. We can't just go rushing in." Vera's gaze softened, a hint of appreciation in her eyes. "I knew I could count on you." Jason nodded. "Let's get to work then." The weight of the situation wasn't lost on him. He was about to embark on a journey into the unknown, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he was truly needed. It was terrifying, but it was also exhilarating. And as much as he had no idea what lay ahead, he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to let Vera face it alone. Jason and Vera spent the next few days carefully planning their escape. Every move had to be precise, every decision calculated. They knew the risks. Staying in one place too long would put them in danger, but they had to be smart. Jason had made a few calls to secure safe passage out of the city, just in case they needed to move quickly. Vera's presence had started to attract too much attention, even if she did her best to blend in. He couldn't afford to wait any longer. The Heartstone, whatever it was, had to be their next priority. "The sooner we get there, the better," Jason said one evening, as they sat together, reviewing their plans. "The longer we wait, the more chance we give them to catch up to us." Vera nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "I know," she said quietly, "but we must be cautious. The Heartstone is not something that can be found easily. It requires specific knowledge, and only a few of us can access it." Jason leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "What exactly do we need to get it? Where do we even begin?" Vera took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "The Heartstone is hidden in an ancient temple, located on a planet that is far from here. It's a place that has been forgotten by most, hidden in the wilderness. Only those with the right skills can navigate the terrain and reach it." Jason raised an eyebrow. "That doesn't sound like an easy trek." "It isn't," Vera admitted. "But we don't have a choice. If we don't retrieve it, the people who are hunting me will find it first. And once they do, it will be too late." Jason thought for a moment. He hadn't signed up for intergalactic treasure hunts, but he had no intention of letting Vera down. "How do we even get there?" Vera looked at him with a small, confident smile. I've arranged transport. We leave in the morning. Jason didn't question how she had made the arrangements. He knew. Better by now. There were still so many unanswered questions about Vera's past, but at this point, it didn't matter. They were in this together. The next morning, they were on their way. Jason had packed what he needed. A few essentials, some weapons, and enough supplies to last them a few days. He glanced at Vera as they boarded the ship. She seemed calm, her demeanor as regal and composed as ever. But he could see the worry in her eyes, the way her fingers clenched slightly as they took off. He knew how much this mission meant to her. "You okay?" he asked softly, not wanting to break the silence too abruptly. Vera nodded, though her expression remained serious. "I'm fine. Just anxious. This is more than just my life at stake now." Jason gave her a reassuring smile. "We'll get through this. We're in it together, remember?" She met his gaze, her eyes full of determination. Yes, together. As the ship soared through space, Jason couldn't help but feel the weight of what they were about to do. They were heading into unknown territory, to a place where few had gone before. But one thing was certain, they were running out of time. And if they didn't find the Heartstone first, it wouldn't just be Vera's life that was in danger. It would be the fate of an entire world. As the ship cut through the vast emptiness of space, Jason couldn't help but feel the weight of their journey pressing down on him. Vera sat quietly beside him, her eyes staring out the window at the stars streaking by, her face calm but distant. She hadn't said much since they had left, and Jason wasn't sure if it was the tension of the mission or something else that had her so quiet. He glanced at her, wondering just how much more she was hiding. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with concern. Vera turned to him, her expression softening slightly. "I'm fine. Just thinking," she replied. There was a flicker of hesitation in her voice, but she quickly masked it with a composed smile. "We're almost there. Just a little longer." Jason nodded, but his mind was far from calm. He knew the stakes were high, too high to ignore. They were heading to a planet on the edge of the galaxy, a place few people had ever ventured. The Heartstone was there, hidden in a forgotten temple, but it was more than just an object. It was the key to everything. Jason didn't fully understand why it was so important, but Vera's urgency had made that much clear. He could feel the burden of responsibility resting on his shoulders. It was no longer just about helping Vera. It was about protecting something that could change the fate of entire civilizations. "What happens after we get the Heartstone?" Jason asked, breaking the silence again. Vera seemed to ponder the question for a moment before answering. "After we have it, we'll be able to stop those who are hunting me. But getting it won't be easy. There are dangers on this planet that no one has faced in centuries." Jason's curiosity was piqued. "What kind of dangers?" Vera hesitated. "The planet is unstable, shifting landscapes, ancient traps, and worse. We have to be careful, but we don't have a choice. If we don't get there first, the consequences will be far worse." Jason leaned back in his seat, absorbing her words. "So we're walking into a death trap." Vera's gaze met his, and for the first time, Jason saw the vulnerability in her eyes. "It might be, but we don't have another option. If we don't get the Heartstone, everything we're fighting for will be lost." Jason nodded, his mind made up. He had no idea what kind of dangers lay ahead, but he wasn't backing down. He had come this far, and he wasn't going to abandon her now. They both knew they were in this together, for better or worse. The ship's console beeped, interrupting their moment of quiet understanding. They were approaching the planet. Jason glanced at the screen, his heart racing as the planet's surface came into view. It was a stark contrast to the peaceful view of space outside. Rugged mountains and barren deserts stretched across the surface, with no sign of civilization. "Here we are," Jason said, taking a deep breath. Vera didn't respond immediately. Instead, she simply stared at the screen, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke. "Let's do this." Jason nodded, his resolve firm. The planet was dangerous, the mission uncertain, but one thing was clear. They were about to face whatever came their way, together. As the ship touched down on the planet's surface, the air inside the cockpit was thick with anticipation. The barren landscape outside was both mesmerizing and intimidating. A mix of jagged mountains and dry, cracked earth stretched out before them, interrupted only by the occasional shadow of distant ruins. Jason tightened his grip on the controls, knowing that every second they spent on this planet brought them closer to both their goal and the danger that awaited them. He turned to Vera, who was silent but composed, her eyes locked on the view outside. "Ready?" he asked, his voice steady despite the unease he felt. Vera nodded slowly. "I've been here before," she said quietly. "But never like this. We need to be careful. The temple is hidden deep within the mountains. It's easy to get lost, and once we're inside, there's no turning back." Jason exhaled slowly, checking their gear one last time. They were both dressed for the journey. Light, but durable clothing designed to handle the rough terrain. Jason had packed their essentials: water, food, and a few weapons, just in case. "Let's make sure we don't get separated," he said, as he secured his backpack. Vera nodded again, the faintest glimmer of something in her eyes. "Determination, maybe." "We stick together," she affirmed. They disembarked from the ship, the harsh wind immediately greeting them as they stepped onto the planet's surface. The air was thin, and the ground beneath them was uneven, making every step feel heavier than it should have. They moved swiftly, following the map Vera had pulled up on her device. The ruins they were heading toward weren't far, but they had to navigate through the rocky terrain carefully. Jason glanced over at Vera as they walked. Despite the tension, she seemed completely at ease, like she belonged in this strange, hostile place. He couldn't help but admire her strength. After all that had happened, she still carried herself like she had everything under control. "How far?" he asked, breaking the silence between them. Vera didn't answer immediately, but after a few moments, she pointed ahead. "Just past those cliffs. The temple is hidden behind them. But once we're in the valley, we need to move quickly. There are ancient traps that still work. They're meant to keep people away." Jason's heart rate quickened at the mention of traps, but he didn't let it show. "Got it," he said, adjusting his pack. They continued on, the wind picking up as they neared the cliffs. The valley beyond was even more desolate than Jason had imagined. The ground was covered in what looked like dry, cracked clay, and a faint scent of something ancient filled the air. The only sound was the crunch of their footsteps on the barren land. As they reached the base of the cliffs, Vera stopped and turned to face Jason. "Stay close," she said, her voice now serious. "The entrance is just ahead, but we need to be cautious. This place has a way of making you lose your bearings." Jason nodded, glancing around. The valley was eerily silent, and the looming cliffs above them created a sense of foreboding that was hard to ignore. "Let's get in and out," he said. "No detours." Vera gave him a quick nod, and they continued on. The entrance to the temple was hidden in plain sight, a narrow passage carved into the rock, nearly impossible to see unless you knew where to look. As they entered, the temperature dropped, and the air felt heavier, as if the temple itself was alive, waiting. Jason couldn't help but feel the weight of history pressing down on them. They were about to walk into something ancient, something powerful, and he knew, in that moment, that this was more than just a mission to retrieve an artifact. This was about survival, not just for them, but for everything that hung in the balance. As Jason and Vera moved deeper into the temple, the air grew thicker, almost stifling. The walls, etched with ancient symbols, seemed to pulse with a strange energy, like the place itself was alive, watching them. Jason's boots echoed on the stone floor, the sound amplified by the quiet that surrounded them. Vera, ever composed, led the way, her movements swift and sure. Jason kept a few steps behind her, scanning their surroundings, alert for any sign of danger. "Stay close," Vera said softly, her voice barely more than a whisper. Jason nodded, his eyes darting over the carvings on the walls. They looked almost too perfect, too intentional, as if they were meant to tell a story. Vera stopped in front of a large stone door, its surface covered in intricate designs. The symbols seemed to glow faintly, responding to their presence. "This is it," Vera said, her voice steady but filled with a sense of urgency. Jason stepped forward, inspecting the door. It was massive, far larger than anything he had ever encountered. The air around it felt heavier, charged with an energy that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "What now?" Jason asked. Vera didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer to the door, her fingers brushing the surface. She closed her eyes for a moment, concentrating. "We need to activate it," she said finally, her voice barely above a murmur. "But it's not just about touching the door. There's a sequence, a key to unlocking it. I'll need your help. Jason frowned, but he didn't hesitate. What do I need to do? Vera's gaze met his, a flash of something. Determination, maybe even fear, passing through her eyes. I need you to trust me, Jason. You're the key to this. The door will respond to you, but only if you're ready. Jason took a deep breath, trying to push aside the unease that had settled in his chest. He had come this far, and he wasn't about to back out now. All right, let's do it. Vera nodded, stepping aside to give him space. Jason walked up to the door, his hand hovering just inches from its surface. He felt the weight of Vera's gaze on him, the unspoken trust between them. Slowly, he reached out, his fingers grazing the stone. The moment his skin made contact, the symbols on the door flared to life, glowing brighter and pulsing with energy. Jason pulled his hand back instinctively, startled by the intensity of the reaction. What the hell, he muttered. Vera's voice was calm, reassuring. You did it. It's responding to you, Jason. Keep going. Taking another deep breath, Jason placed his hand flat against the door. The symbols seemed to shift, rearranging themselves in a way that made his head spin. He could feel the power radiating from the stone, the ancient magic that had been sealed away for centuries. Slowly, he moved his hand in a circular motion, following the pattern Vera had shown him. The door trembled under his touch, and then, with a loud grinding noise, it began to open. Dust and debris fell from the door as it shifted, revealing the dark passage beyond. The air inside felt even heavier, thick with the weight of ages. We're in, Jason said, his voice barely above a whisper. Vera stepped forward, her eyes focused on the path ahead. We're not out of danger yet, she said, her voice low and steady. We still have a long way to go. Jason nodded, following her into the darkness. As they ventured deeper into the temple, the atmosphere became more oppressive, the silence almost suffocating. The only sound was the faint echo of their footsteps as they moved through the vast, dark halls. Jason couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the temple itself was aware of their every move. They rounded a corner and came face to face with another set of doors, this one even more elaborate than the first. Vera stopped in front of it, her expression unreadable. This is where we'll find it, she said quietly. The Heartstone. Jason looked at her, his heart pounding. The journey had been long and dangerous, but they were finally here. The Heartstone was within their reach. But as they stood there, poised to enter, a chill ran down Jason's spine. He knew that the real challenge was just beginning.